Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 31st episode of The Inbox, and we're going to start off with a question from Self-Arrested, saying, do you think that CIG will remove motion blur by default, given that it's something PC gamers almost universally hate? You're right, most people do hate motion blur, but some people like it because it provides a certain level of immersion. So, knowing CIG, they seem to want to give you as many options as possible, not only in-game, but probably as far as the settings are concerned as well. So I wouldn't say it's going to be removed from the game. It's probably going to be a very simple toggle in the settings to where you could choose to have it on or off. The question then comes, is there a benefit to, or is there a difference in, I guess, your effectiveness if you have it on or off, and how big of a difference is that? So for example, if it's intended that like a 350R blazing past your cockpit looks really fast and is hard to see, if that's a design decision, then you may not get the opportunity to actually toggle it off, just because that may be something that they want to have happen. The faster the ship, the more motion blur, the harder to hit. It could be a balancing aspect, but my gut says that they'll probably just give you a toggle to, decide if you want it on or off. Vinny Vici says, is there going to be a huge mining ship? Yes, there is a huge mining ship, the Orion mining platform. It is a gigantic ship. It's got storage on it, it's got a refinery on it, it's got mining lasers on it, it may end up having the option to use drones. It's got a large crew size of like 4 or 5. It is a very big ship. In fact, it's one of the bigger ships that we have in game. And actually, if you check out the video that I did on the ship scale viewer, you can either download that and check it yourself, or just watch the video and you'll see the Orion mining platform in there, but it is massive. Dola6 says, any profitable career for racing ships? Is racing going to be worthwhile in Star Citizen? I think there's a big enough contingent to where racing is going to be an interesting aspect of the game. As far as it being profitable, I think it's going to be determined based on your overall skill. For example, if you are a really good racer, you're probably going to make some pretty good money. Especially if there's like an in-game economy around it, whether that be gambling or, like a large circuit. And we've got the Murray Cup, and there's some lore behind it. So I think there's enough to suggest that it's at least going to be an interesting and fairly large part of the game. Large if you want to be a part of it. It's not going to be mandatory by any means. But it's probably like real racing circuits here on Earth. If you are a good racer, you can make a lot of money. If you're a bad racer, you're really just doing it for fun. Now, those same ships can actually be used in different roles. I look at racing ships and say they're made for really good scouts. Maybe not necessarily long range, but if you want to jump in ahead of a fleet, scan the area and then be really hard to catch, like a 350R, for example, is going to be really hard for any pursuer to get a hold of you because you're faster than everybody else. You may not necessarily have the best weapons loadout on something like an M50, but if you're a scout, you shouldn't really be going in and doing the damage first. You're just checking out the area, and if you want to get into like an escort role, then somebody may pay you well to do that. Beyond that, I think little things like information couriers or, data transfer type services, or maybe you just want to take a letter from here to there. Those types of things may not require actual cargo space as far as SCU. You may be able to stick something in your glove box, and in that case, you're going to be a really hard target for a pirate to catch. So maybe carrying or ferrying really important information could also be a good career for somebody in a racing ship. Genghis Khan says, my biggest question, and this is kind of a long one, so I'm going to summarize it, but is how is this game going to feel in open world? Asks about, how it's going to be giant, it's going to be ever expanding if he's not mistaken. How is it going to populate the universe? Well, we have a bunch of servers with different universes. Will people play together? Basically, wants to know if it's going to end up feeling empty, and what are the odds of running into another player? So the universe is designed to be players 10% and NPCs 90%. So the larger the universe gets, the more people are going to be spread out. It's how it's gonna work. People are gonna move to different parts of the universe. But there's always going to be NPCs present. Now, if we use something like Elite Dangerous as an example, the farther you get away from the core systems, the less likely you are to run into another real player. And that's because most people stay where they can make the money in those kind of core systems. If you go exploring to the center of the galaxy, you're not going to run into a whole lot of people. So I think we're going to see similar things. There's probably going to be, you've got Terra and Sol and Stanton and a bunch of systems that kind of make up the heart of, our little section of space. And that's where you're going to run into the most players. And then as you get out and further away, maybe get closer to Vanduul space or get closer to Banu space, you're going to run into less and less real players, probably. Now, you're going to start seeing more alien races the further you get out, because human space is kind of surrounded by all the different alien races. So if you get away from the core systems and get closer to Banu, you may stop seeing, or you may see less real players, but more NPC like Banus. Or, for example, you may see less NPC humans out in that area, but you may see more real, like as far as the human population, you know, if you're close to Banu space or in Banu space, you may end up seeing, I don't know, 15% of that population there may be the human race, whether those be NPC or real players. But out of those 15%, you may end up seeing 10% of, or 90% of that actually being real players. And then, you know, the NPC population then becomes Banu. So I think there's going to be some things that kind of, to consider there. The universe doesn't seem like it's going to be as big as Elite Dangerous's universe is. And that's fine, because I think it does provide more gameplay where you are around real players and you've increased that chance to run into them. But I think that golden ratio of 10 to 90% is what we're going to expect to see. And you're going to see real players. It just depends on where you're at and how often it's going to happen. Joe's Got More says, do you think TDD missions will come with varying levels of payment, meaning high pay, high risk, you're on your own to get X cargo for level A mission, same mission level B, less pay but comes with 1 or 2 escorts, etc.? Yes. That's the simple answer. There's going to be different things to consider. For example, if it's a jump from one system to another, maybe even an in-system, cargo run, that's going to be something that's not going to pay as much as, as if you have to jump, 5 systems away to complete that. Now, if you're doing, 5 systems away and that takes you right on the fringe of Banu space, sort of like not Banu. Let me try that again. If you have to jump 5 jumps away and end up very close to Vandal space, that's probably going to be considered riskier, and then you have to pay more. But you may want to pay to have escorts come with you. I don't think a whole lot of these missions are going to be, take this mission and we'll provide you with escorts. It's probably going to put that on you. So you accept the mission to take cargo from point A to point B. If it's worthy or you deem it worthy, then you may want to decide to hire escorts on your own. It probably isn't going to be handed to you in like a package and say, here's your mission, including all the NPCs that are going to help you out. Now, and then I think, the same thing kind of goes for like pirate systems. You may be able to negotiate a little bit, but it's not going to be any mission you take is always going to pay you 30,000 UEC. If it's an easy, fast one, it's going to pay less. If it's a hard, long one that's time consuming, you're going to get paid more. So it's going to fluctuate. It's just going to depend on, a lot of different factors. Time allotment, your fuel that's going to be consumed, probably the worth of what you're carrying, and then the risk of that mission overall. Bennett Lamontagne says, forgive me if this is a stupid question, but when the game is technically released, will I be able to buy ships with in-game currency? And if so, is it limited only to certain ships, or will I be able to buy an Idris with in-game currency? Yes, absolutely, you'll be able to buy things in-game. And no, it's not a stupid question. Everybody has to, kind of learn this on their own. But yes, you can absolutely buy ships in-game. And that's actually what a lot of people are doing. There's a huge contingent of players that are buying just an Aurora and planning on working their way up to other ships. I would say an Idris is probably going to be the largest ship that you can actually buy in-game. Things like a Bengal or a Javelin, the large ships that are persistent that you can't just log off of and, it disappears. Those are probably going to be ships you can't buy. You probably have to go, steal one, or you have to go repair a derelict or something like that. But even then, you don't necessarily buy it. You just find it and do your thing with it. So as far as, are there limited ships? You should be able to buy pretty much everything in game. It's going to be hard to buy some of them, though. Like a Constellation Phoenix, for example, is going to be a limited ship. So you may have to travel halfway across the universe to actually go find one to actually buy it, and then it comes with a really high cost. Or something like an F-8 Lightning, for example. It's a military exclusive. It may fall into the same category as the large persistent ships. You probably can't buy the military space supremacy fighter, but you can probably try and steal one, even though that would be a really, really hard thing to do. So, yes, you can buy things in the universe. Total Despair says, does anybody here know if or how I can sell the Bombay modules on my Retaliator so I can essentially downgrade it to the base Retaliator? There's not a way to do that in-game right now, at least to my knowledge. It's basically a variant of that ship now. So there may be a point, and I think probably the best thing that you can do is just wait. We've been hearing for a while now that they're going to be implementing cross-chassis downgrade, so a CCD. And if that ends up becoming the case, then you could probably end up downgrading your bomber to the the base Retaliator. Now, even though you've got the bomber now, you could still buy those standalone modules, and then once you get the option to, change those in the universe, then you could just, keep the bomb base, but instead of equipping those, equip like cargo or the living quarters, those types of things. So there's going to be the ability to plug and play, even though you've got the bomber, but again, that's going to cost you a little bit more if that's not necessarily what you want right from the beginning. And for the last question today, it's Dan Simkus. It says, hi Tech, huge fan of the channel. I like Tactical Advance too. I'm actually STLYoungblood. Two-part question. Do you think that there will be a physical social hub for you and your organization to meet up and hang out privately? I think what we're going to see is probably organization types of hangars to where, you may have a shared hangar or a shared warehouse where you can meet up. But chances are you're just going to meet up in each other's hangars and kind of use those as a meeting place until we get those organization type of buildings in place. But there has been discussion from the developers that that's something they want to put into the game. And then for number 2, do you or any of your subs want to see an in-game habitation crafting system? For example, you discover a habitable planet and think this is a good hideout for my organization, so you can either craft the materials, basically create your own type of stronghold. Yeah, I do want to see that, and I think it's something that a lot of people want to see. I think it's probably a long way off, and I think it's something that they're going to give us the ability to do, but I think it's very low priority right now. So I think it's going to be something that happens. In the shorter term, I think what you're more likely going to see is people capturing space stations and then calling that their home and defending it with all their honor. That's probably going to be the real base outside of those shared types of hangars that you have as an organization until we get much further down the line. And we may be talking 2020 before something like that gets implemented. But I think it is something that they want to add. It's just a matter of when can they get around to it and where does it fall within the prioritization. And then also what sort of strain does that actually have on the game engine? For example, if it's not a standard type of asset, it may be harder for the game engine to actually render that, and it may kind of slow down the overall performance of the server. So if that ends up becoming a factor, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that gets nixed. But it is something that they want to do. The question is how they make that happen and when it happens. So that's going to be it for this episode of The Inbox. I appreciate you guys watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Stay tuned for more, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.